Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever stepped into a high school first thing in the morning, you already know it's a completely chaotic mix of missing assignments, looming deadlines, and this endless chorus of smartphone notifications. But what if we could actually transform that chaotic 7:30 a.m. energy into a deliberate, focused laboratory for thought? Well, today we're looking at exactly how to build a highly powerful start to the school day, specifically focusing on our 11th and 12th graders. You know, those AP students who are right on the cusp of adulthood and really searching for meaning.
We're going to kick things off with a grounding thought from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Take a slow breath and just let that sink in for a second. A classroom shouldn't just be a waiting room until the next test drops. It's a place where ideas are tested, challenged, refined, and sometimes completely transformed. And this quote perfectly frames our goal today, building those small, daily habits that fundamentally shape a student's mind over time.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be hitting 1. The philosophy of progress. 2. How your brain learns. 3. The 1% Kaizen rule. 4. Anatomy of the homeroom launch. 5. Black swans and study habits. And finally, 6. Setting your daily intention. We're going to move pretty quickly from the philosophical why behind morning routines straight into the highly practical how.
All right, part 1. The philosophy of progress. To figure out how we should start the school day, we really have to zoom out and look at the era our students are walking into right now.
Think about this. Back in the 1700s, information only traveled as fast as a horse could physically run. Today, it moves at the literal speed of light. Your 11th graders have more knowledge sitting right in their pockets today than at any other point in human history. It is wild to think they carry the equivalent of the entire Library of Alexandria right next to their TikTok app. But having all this instant access completely shifts how we have to approach learning in a modern classroom.
Which brings us to a pretty massive question. Does access to information automatically make us wiser? I'll give you a second to think about that. The answer, of course, is absolutely no. Actual wisdom takes something much more intentional than just rapid access to facts. It requires students to process all that information deliberately and critically.
Okay, moving on to section 2, how your brain learns. We've got to look at the actual science here to see how students process this light-speed influx of data.
You see, the brain is not a passive receiver. It's not like an empty bucket just waiting to be filled up by a teacher. It's a highly active prediction machine. Every single time a student learns something new, their brain physically changes. Connections get stronger and entirely new pathways form. But here's the catch, and this is absolutely crucial. The brain doesn't grow from those intense, dramatic, all-nighter bursts of studying. It grows from consistency, over intensity. Small, steady steps are what actually rewire the mind.
That takes us perfectly into section 3, the 1% Kaizen rule. Since the brain thrives on consistency, we really need to talk about micro-habits. 1%. I want you to anchor yourself to this concept. Ask yourself, where would your students be in exactly 1 year if your morning routine helped them get just 1% better every single day? Not perfectly better, not dramatically better, just slightly. The compound interest on that tiny 1% over an entire school year is absolutely staggering.
This is the whole essence of Kaizen. It's the Japanese philosophy of continuous, steady, intentional improvement over time. It is not about relying on overnight breakthroughs. Massive factories, Olympic athletes, top-tier scientists, they all use this exact philosophy to master their craft. And it's incredibly simple to pass on to your students. Don't worry about being perfect today, just aim to be slightly better than you were yesterday.
But, better for what? What does it actually mean to live a good life? Is it success? Happiness? Freedom? This is the ultimate question philosophers have been debating for thousands of years. By dropping this level of thinking into a morning routine, we instantly elevate the discussion. We remind these 11th and 12th graders that they aren't just prepping for some high-stakes AP test. They are ultimately preparing to answer this fundamental life question for themselves.
All right, section 4, anatomy of the homeroom launch. We've hit the philosophy and the science, so let's get into what an intentional morning routine looks like in practice. So this is a clean 60-second chronological format. It builds psychological safety and literally readies the mind for deep learning. Step 1, a simple greeting and a 30-second breathing or grounding exercise. Step 2, a quick quote or piece of philosophy. Step 3, a brief history fact. Step 4, a practical study habit. And finally, Step 5, a closing reflection.
It's highly respectful, it's thought-provoking, and it establishes a repeatable rhythm right from the jump.
Next up, Section 5, Black Swans and Study Habits. Let's zoom in on the middle steps of this routine to see how we can actively spark that intellectual curiosity.
In Step 3, we introduce what's known as a black swan. These are those surprising historical events or turning points that profoundly shaped history, but nobody saw them coming. Think of the sudden fall of the Berlin Wall or the invention of the printing press. Sharing just one fascinating historical fact a day keeps upper-level students so intellectually engaged. It shows them that history isn't just a boring list of dates. It's dynamic, surprising, and super complex.
Then we slide right into Step 4, the daily study habit. A great example? Having them use retrieval practice for 5 minutes before even peeking at their notes. Because disciplined studying isn't about working more hours until a student is just completely exhausted. It's about working with sharp focus. It's active recall. By giving students one actionable habit like this every morning, you're handing them the actual literal tools for academic success.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, setting your daily intention. This is the last step of the launch, and honestly, it's arguably the most crucial one. We want students to chew on a few daily challenges. Ask themselves, what idea do I want to deeply understand today? Where can I push my thinking? What does 1% better actually look like today? Every single class they walk into is a chance to connect dots across different disciplines, whether that's science, literature, or history. Real learning happens when ideas collide. These questions reframe their mindset, so they're actively hunting for those collisions. And then we ask them to take just 10 seconds of pure, silent reflection to complete one simple thought. Today, I will. This isn't about stressing over some rigid, massive goal. It's about setting an intention. A goal is a destination, right? But an intention is a direction. It is just a brief, quiet pause to fill in that blank before the chaos of the school day takes over. Because at the end of the day, small steps repeated daily create truly extraordinary outcomes. You really don't need to change everything about your school culture today. Just aim for that 1%. By implementing this quick homeroom launch, you quietly but powerfully reshape a student's entire trajectory. So my final question to you is this: what will your 1% change be in your classroom tomorrow morning?